What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikaPikaPapa, and I can't believe it has been 3 months, 1 full quarter since we had this crazy idea, this crazy notion of what if you could invest in Pokemon a little bit differently? What if there were Pokemon index funds out there? Now, index funds are something that's wildly popular in the stock market, right? So what happens is you can invest in a single index, and that index is invested in a bunch of different companies. It could be all the companies in the Fortune 500. It could be dividend growth companies, it could be REITs, it could be bonds, like there's all kinds of different indexes, but essentially what you do is you say, hey, I think this segment of the market, or I think this is the way I want to approach the future, and you simply buy one index fund, and what that does is it spreads your risk across a bunch of different companies. And it's really, really popular in the stock market. Now, you can't compare investing in the stock market to investing in Pokemon simply because when you buy a stock, right, like you own a share of that company. You will actually become an owner of that company. A great example is if you buy a share of Nintendo stock, guess what? You are now a part owner of the Pokemon Company International because Nintendo is one of the 3 companies that owns Pokemon. However, if you go out to the store and you buy a pack of Pokemon cards, an ETB, a booster box, whatever, you are a consumer of Pokemon, right? And at the end of the day, all that you own is the cardboard and ink that is in that box or the pack. So we use a lot of investing terms and stock market terms, but you really can't compare the two because they're not the same. However, you certainly could, maybe, possibly invent some kind of really cool Pokemon index fund, understanding that what you're investing in is simply the cardboard and the cards and not the actual company itself. And some of the reasons we thought about this is, hey, what if you want all the booster boxes from the Sword and Shield era and you just don't have the storage for it, or you don't have the capital to outlay that much money right now? Or what if you want all the Elite Trainer boxes in the same era, but you just can't seem to get your hands on all of them? The other thing that we talked about too, and we've done a ton of videos over the last 3 months on this, is that picking the top cards is really, really hard. We have seen time and time again through tons of data dives that, listen, the top 5, top 10 cards in these sets always seem to shuffle a lot over time. Heck, they've been shuffling a lot over the last year. So when you invest in a quote-unquote index fund, right, you're investing in, let's say, the top 20 cards from a certain set. You don't care which one ends up from 1 to 5 or 8 to 2 or any of that because you have a part in all of them, so it's all good for you. The other thing that we talked about too is, hey, what if you want some exposure to some super high-end cards, but you don't have $10, $15, $30,000 to go drop on a single cardboard, right? Like, this could be a really cool way to give everybody some exposure and get some excitement and some fire in our bellies about, hey, listen, I really want that, base set first edition Charizard to go up in price because guess what? I have it in an index fund and I have a little piece of the pie. So the final thing that we talked about, and this is something that's really important to me, is to separate the collecting from the investing side of things. Like, obviously, I am all about the money, but I'm also all about the collecting side of things. My greatest joy in this whole hobby is opening up packs and boxes and doing things with my family and having fun and enjoying the cards, sending them off to PSA, getting them back. We have tons and tons of fun with that. And I think if a system like this existed, it would give me an outlet for the investing side of things because obviously I think that this is a great long-term investment. Pokemon cards as a whole, I think are going to do really well over the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And then it would really give me an ability to separate it. So we did this. We came up with some really cool index funds. Now, before I get into that, here's what I'm going to say. If you watch this video and if you think this is a cool concept, I need you to help me out. I need you to drop in the comments down below what other things you think we should index, because we certainly don't have enough right now. Because at the end of the day, not only do I want this to be a really cool indexing video, but I also want this to give us an idea of what's going on in the hobby, right? Like, we picked Charizard 3 months ago because Charizard was the most graded Pokemon card out there, and we thought, hey, like, that is a good indicator of what's going on at the macro level of the hobby. And we picked some other sets as well. So here's what we indexed out. Here's what we're going to be looking at the results of today. So obviously I already talked about the Charizard. Can't wait to get that in front of you. Then the Sword and Shield booster boxes, right? We did an index fund on all 12 of those. Then we looked at, this is really cool. I can't wait to share this with you guys. All of the Japanese booster boxes that came out in 2022 and 2021. That is absolutely crazy to look at. And then you all know I love my Pokemon Center exclusive ETB. So we did an index on that. I can't wait to talk about how that's going to grow and how that's going to change in the future. Then we did Lost Origin, right? We did Lost Origin before we knew there was going to be a restock, so it'll be really cool to see how that did. We also wanted to go back a little bit, so we did Roaring Skies, top 20 cards there, and then we also did Celebration. Celebration is something I want to keep an eye on because I think, who knows how it will compare to 151. I don't know what the pull rates of 151 are going to be like. I don't know how much it's going to be printed, but I do like these anniversary, these throwback sets, so I think Celebrations is a really cool thing to index. So we're about to look at the Charizard set to see how it performed, but I want to pause for a moment moment and say, listen, if this kind of stuff excites you, we're building an amazing community here. I would love it if you hit that subscribe button. If you have questions or comments, or drop them down below. And if you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. Those 3 small things go a long way in helping out my small channel, and especially videos like this where I do a ton of work on the back end. Really lets me know that you appreciate all the stuff I put in. So without further ado, let's look at these Charizards. So here's what we came up with, and I thought it was really important to go ahead and define this. Now, I defined this 3 months ago in the video, but the channel's grown by leaps and bounds, so I wanted to do it so you guys, I'd prefer it if you go back and watch the old video, but I'll give you a highlight right here. So we looked at the 15 highest valued English Charizard cards according to Polkadata.io. So all this information comes from Polkadata.io. I wanted one source of truth, one source of information, so that's consistent from here until the end of time. Wanted to make sure they were graded by PSA, right? Like if you're gonna invest in these, they gotta be graded. And then I had to apply some rules to it. So my rule was, hey, listen, if a PSA 10 is greater than $10,000, I'm gonna go to a PSA 9 because I wanna make sure that people have the opportunity to buy it. And also, let's say a Charizard Holo, right, from base set first edition, like a PSA 10 is going to totally blow this out of the water, and it didn't make sense, so we dropped it down to PSA 9. The other thing that I had to make sure was that every single one of these in at least PSA 9 had a population of 200 or more. Now, the population is really important because you want these cards to be liquid, like you want to be able to buy them and sell them, and when you start to get in these really small pops in the 10s, in the hundreds even, you know, anything less than 200, these can be locked away in collections for a long, long time, and they might never resurface. So for me, it was really important for it to have a population greater than 200. Now, here you will see the price on 522, and guess what? Here you are going to see what it all boiled out to. Now, on all the other ones, I don't go into quite this much detail, but again, I always like to show you guys the math behind it, right? I never want you to think that PikaPikaPapa is sitting here on a napkin with a crayon drawing everything out. So these are the ways that I looked at it. So you have in that light green column, you got the price on 522, and then in those gray columns, it's really important to call this out. So I said, okay, a share of Charizard Ultimate, this fictitious index fund of Charizard greatness that I created. There are 2 different ways that you can do it. You can either break it down so one share represents an even dollar amount in every single card. So you'll see there's 15 cards, $10,000, right? Divide that by 15. That would be $667 of each card. So when you look at the very top, that Charizard base set first edition holo, right, in PSA 9, since that price is so high, you would only own 4% of that card. But when you look all the way down at the bottom, the Charizard GX from Hidden Fates, because that card is of a lower price, you actually almost own a full set of that card. You almost own the full card, right? You own 94% of it. So that was one way to look at it. Then the other way to look at it, which I think is the cleaner version, which is what we're going to be doing moving forward, but I did the work, so I wanted to show you guys all of this, is just an even percentage of cards straight across the board. So you just peanut butter spread it, even percentage of all the cards. That way you get even exposure to all of them. You get the even upside, the even downside, all of that, versus in the other ones where, you know, it's kind of disproportionate based off of how much of that individual card that you own. So we've explained what those 2 gray columns are. Now you have the blue column. That is the actual price on 8/22. I had so much fun pulling this information. Really, really cool stuff. Then you're going to see the change in price. I did it in a percentage, right? You can see from 522 to 822, you can see the percentage change in price, and then the dollar change as well. Now, what that results in is the pink column and the yellow column. So the pink column is how much of that card it would be worth today. Let's say the Charizard base set holo first edition, right? Like you own 4% of that card. The card is now worth $30,710. You own 4% of that, right? So you have $1,268 worth of that card. So your value has increased, right? It's increased by 90%. Then you have the even percentage on the side, and that math works all the way down. Now you're gonna see that obviously the total dollar change and the even percentage change are the same, right? Because you own an even amount of all of them. But it was interesting to see how if you just owned a same dollar amount of the cards, look how the percent return was muted. So you would have only returned 12.4% looking at it that way versus the peanut butter spread, which we're gonna do moving forward, where you ended up with a really, really strong 32.2% return. One of the things that was really cool when I was doing this Charizard look back was, hey, I thought, man, that's a really high price jump, right? Like this thing went up 90% in 3 months. I need to figure this out. I need to validate the data. So I looked, and there have been 2 Charizard base set holo first editions in PSA 9 that have sold for over $30,000 in the last couple months. And that is really exciting for me to see them sell so high. That tells me that there's a lot of people out there who still have a lot of belief, just like I do, in the long-term investment quality of Pokemon cards, right? Or else they wouldn't be spending $30,000 on a PSA 9 Charizard card. It just wouldn't happen. But people are investing in it, and they're paying a premium for it. The other thing that was really cool and why I thought this was an awesome one to start off with is there's a lot of cards that are down. Let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards that are down. There's 2 cards that are flat, right? So we're talking about 8 of the 15 that are either down or haven't moved at all. Yet because we peanut butter spread it out, because we invested our money in an index, because it's spread across the 15 cards, we still ended up with a really solid rate of return. Now, in the future, we could see where that big expensive Charizard base set first edition holo, we could see where that goes down, but some of these other ones are going to be there to pick it right back up. So I thought this was such a cool example to start off with, and I absolutely loved it. So now we're going to look at some of the other sets. So this was the Sword and Shield booster, and I can't wait to show you the Japanese one on the next slide. But the Sword and Shield booster kind of caught me off guard a little bit. I don't know what I was expecting. It's always interesting for me because I have these thoughts and feelings, but then the data is always there to confirm it, right? Like I always say, you got to invest with your head and with your heart. My heart tells me one direction, but the data is what my head registers with. So in this, it's actually down 3% when you look at the weighted side over there. When you look at the yellow column, remember that's if we have an even percentage of all of these booster boxes. So I have the price on 522. You see the price on 822. There were some things that went up. Lost Origin fell off the cliff, right? Because it was restocked. Silver Tempest, same thing, fell down. Fusion Strike is down a little bit. Vivid Voltage is down, right? Astral Radiance is down. A lot of these are down. Even Evolving Skies. Evolving Skies is only up 3% since we did this last time. Sword and Shield base is only up 4%. So listen, this might be an example where if I was to separate the collecting and investing side of things, I would say, hey, listen, I think Sword and Shield booster boxes have a very bright future in front of them. So if these were, say, $1,000 a share, which is the way we baked this out the first time, I would be buying more shares of this because I do think now is a great time to get into Sword and Shield booster boxes. I think Scarlet and Violet, obviously we're way into that, right? The third set's come out. We got our first specialty set coming out with 151. I think Sword and Shield booster boxes are kind of at the point now where there's a lot of buying opportunity because it's not going to be there for a very long time. So if this was an index fund, I would definitely be putting my money into that right now. This is the one I was talking about. That was absolutely crazy. Now, I have admitted time and time and time again that I don't know a whole lot about the Japanese market. It's just not my area of expertise, but I've been doing a ton of research into it to try and educate myself. I know that I did the grading card video where PSA opened up the brand new grading facility over there, and we've seen this huge jump in grading volume at PSA. We suspect that's a lot of Japanese cards getting graded, but I thought it was really cool to look at the sealed product. And now, if you guys think it'd be a cool time to do a Japanese singles card, like a PSA 10, Japanese waifu index fund, drop it in the comments down below. Maybe that'll be a cool one for us to do moving forward. So, but the booster boxes have absolutely crushed City over the last 3 months. I mean, you look at it, almost all of them are up. There's a couple that are flat. And again, when you look at this, if a card or a box or something doesn't sell over the last 3 months, the price doesn't change. The price stays the same, right? That's the difference. One of the many differences between Pokemon cards, and stocks, right? Stocks are always fluctuating up and down a little bit. These are remaining flat because some of these didn't exchange hands. But look at some of these change in prices, up 31%, 8%, 35%, 38%, up 74%. We have to go all the way down to Time Gazer before we get to a sealed product, a sealed booster box product from Japan that is actually down, and that is down 16%. Then you get to Fusion Arts, right? Up 127%. It has doubled. It is absolutely crazy. No matter which way you looked at it, whether you just owned an even dollar amount or if you did the even percentage amount, which we're going to do moving forward, either way, you were up over 30% if you had invested on this index fund. So this is a ton of fun. I hope I get the comments to do a Japanese singles card index because I think that would be a ton of fun to do in the future too. So now my favorite, you guys know that I absolutely love Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs. So it has not performed well as of late. What happened is we bought all of these. When we did it on 522, we decided, okay, we're not going to go back and say we bought these at MSRP. We're going to say we're buying these at the price they're at today because it would be unfair to try and say, hey, we're going to hit the time machine button. We're going to go back in time. We're going to buy these at MSRP. That's just not the way I like to do things. I like to do things as transparently as possible, as real as possible. So we said, hey, listen, we're buying all of these at their current market price today. So when you look at things like the Scarlet and Violet Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer boxes, we bought those at almost $86 and $77. Now, what we will do moving forward is, since this is after this is launched, since this is after the index fund is launched, in the next iteration, we'll assume that Paldea Evolved, Obsidian Flames, that we bought all of those, 151, that we bought those at MSRP because guess what? That's what I'm actively doing right now. So we will add those in But you're going to see that we bought a lot of these at some pretty high price points. And now Lost Origin is down. Pokemon Go is down. Fusion Strike is down. Silver Tempest is down. I went back and double checked that. And that was the number that I had for Silver Tempest, Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs on 522. Either way you shake it out, listen, the whole index is down about 14-15%. Now, what I really am excited to see is once we start adding some of these in at MSRP, I think that we're going to start to see this right size very, very quickly. And again, I do think that most of these Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer boxes have to get off the friggin' Pokemon Center before we're gonna see any price appreciation, right? Like there's no exclusivity if you can buy them at MSRP. So this is another one that I think you have a long time before it starts to fully bake out. And I do think this is gonna change fundamentally once we start adding in these newer sets and as we start adding them in at MSRP, because listen, Paldea Evolved, Obsidian Flames, 151, even though it's not even out yet, the pre-orders for that are going through the roof. It is just absolutely gonna pop this up. So really excited to see this in the future, but so far, my favorite investment vehicle, womp womp, not doing great. Now, here's we get into the sets and the top 20. Now, Lost Origin is one where, hey, listen, we decided to get in on the top 20. We were all hot and heavy in Lost Origin. Could this be the number 2, number 3, number 4 set in the Sword and Shield era? And then there was a restock and everything fell off the cliffs. But listen, another thing is this, it is going to fade, right? That's another thing. If you're a long-term investor, if you have an index like this, you're not concerned about short-term price appreciation, short-term price drops, right? Like you are in this for the long upward in the right trajectory. And I still think Lost Origin is going to do what Lost Origin was destined to do, and it is going to be fine in the long run. Some of the cool things about this, though, is the Nessa card. We've talked about that a lot. That went from number 20 on 522. It is the 10th most expensive card now on 822. Lady, the card that was just on my 5 under 5 video, right? Lady is now in the top 20 when she wasn't listed before. Boss's Order is another one. It wasn't even listed. Now it's in the top 20. And then we had a couple in the top 20 that dropped off. So I'm going to have to figure out the way to adjust these index funds on the fly, pull out the ones that dropped off, add the ones that are in. Listen, I have several talents and there are things that I am absolutely competent at, but I am not an index fund creator. So this is going to be a ton of fun for me to figure out on the fly. But Lost Origin, again, restock down 12%. Another really cool one that we looked at right here was this Roaring Skies, right? We decided, hey, listen, we want to go back a little bit. Let's look at Roaring Skies. We all thought that was a really great set from XY era. We felt it was a little underappreciated. And guess what? It has been performing really, really well. Now, the top 10 cards, as we talked about at the beginning of this video, the top 10 cards have been shuffling around a lot, but it's still the same top 10. Again, that's one of the things that can cause some safety and some stability when you're looking at investing in these is you don't have to pick the perfect card because you own a little bit of all of them. And overall as a whole, guess what? Over the last 3 months, this index is up 8%. We're talking about 3 freaking months, right? Like that is an amazing rate of return over 3 months. If you annualize that out, you're absolutely killing the game. The other cool thing too is look at that Winona card. That's another card we've talked about in the past that we felt was flying under the radar. It is not flying under the radar anymore. It was going for about, I don't know, 20 bucks when we first did this. Now it's all the way up to $34. So again, super cool view here in one of the older sets in Roaring Skies. Now, Celebrations, this is another one that I've said, I think this is more of a long-term view. We'll have to see how this plays out. But even in the short term, it has performed well. It has given us some good returns. That Charizard, believe it or not, is actually flat. I know it's been getting a little bit of heat. I know it's been getting hot a little bit and people have been excited about it. But over the last 3 months, it's pretty much flat. The Mew Secret, like there's some great cards in here that I think in the long run, over the next 3, 5, 10 years, I think they're going to catch fire. I think Celebrations is going to do great. I still think that there's a lot of it left to be ripped. There's a lot of it out there at MSRP. In the stores, and it should fade soon. And when it does, this will be a really cool index to keep an eye on. And again, this is another one. We saw lots of movements in the top 20, just cards shuffling around, which was really, really interesting to see. You see some are down 50%, some are down 60%, some are up 70%. Like, just imagine if you had to guess which single card was going to be down 50 and which single card was going to be up 70 or 80. You all are brilliant. You all are smart. I'm sure that you could do it. But for me, I certainly like de-risking a little bit and just owning a piece of the pie altogether. So with that being said, listen, so much fun. I absolutely love doing this. If you guys made it to the end of the video and you thought this was cool and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. Join the community. If you like what you saw, give us a thumbs up. Questions or comments or an index that you want me to do moving forward, drop it down below. I appreciate you. You guys have an epic one. See ya.